Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins in a fictitious Dark Ages with a young woman being held captive in an overgrown ruin. Suddenly surrounded by the most hideous gang in the land, they chase the kidnapper away while the ugliest one throws the girl over his shoulder before catching back up to his friends. The fleeing predator locates a horse to escape when a large unnamed barbarian called Deathstalker steps out to let it be known that it's his. The pursuers stop and the ugly leader says that they have no quarrel with the handsome warrior, but unfortunately for them he doesn't care. He makes short work of the deplorable fighters with his soon-to-be upgraded sword and lands a crack shot with a bow that he never even fires again. Stalker gets offered all of the surviving man's valuables but guts him with his dagger as he intended to steal it anyway and just likes killing. Our somewhat hero then joins the long list of guys who seem to all want this girl, but being that he's much better looking than the others she doesn't seem to mind. Unfortunately for him they get interrupted by an old messenger who says that his king wishes to speak with the mighty warrior. That's the girl's cue to depart the rest of the movie while Deathstalker meets King Tulok, who once ruled over the entire kingdom but is now little more than a bum. He says that his court magician Munkar betrayed him and stole his throne using magic that requires him to feed eyeballs to a little chest monster. He also kidnapped the bum's daughter, the Princess Codille, who's been added to the sorcerer's harem of women where she's made to fight over a bucket of chicken. Hoping that one day there'd be a hero brave enough to defeat the evil sorcerer and win back his kingdom, our mighty warrior just replies that heroes are stupid, then leaves. Riding off to find a more easily obtainable woman to ravish, Deathstalker comes upon the home of a less than enticing witch named Toralva. She's attacked by Munkar's general Kang but defends herself with a stick that turns into a snake strong enough to strangle him to death in seconds. Our hero then shows up and cuts down all of his remaining soldiers who were just dragging some random peasant around the forest instead of helping their general. Before Deathstalker can loot Kang's body, he transforms into a falcon and flies away as he was really the sorcerer himself in disguise. Toralva says that the Amulet of Life's what's keeping Munkar immortal and is one of 3 artifacts named the Powers of Creation, which is what they were here looking for. It's a Deathly Hallows situation with the 3 combining to make a Master of Death, and the sorcerer has all but one called the Sword of Justice. Toralva offers it to the traveler so that he can slay Munkar and take the amulet, as well as the 3rd artifact, the Chalice of Magic. With these 3 items Deathstalker can become even more unbeatable, so he agrees to go on basically the same quest that King Tulok offered only minutes ago. The only problem's that Toralva's hidden the sword in the forest, so the warrior must go searching for a cave by a creek where it's guarded by Salmaron. He was once a human until being turned into a troll-like creature by Munkar, but the bigger and angrier resident of the cave isn't mentioned. He tries to kill Stalker until Salmaron tosses him the Sword of Justice and the big guy just turns tail and runs. The cursed man says that he can be restored to his former self, which requires him to use the power of the sword to regress his savior back into childhood. He's now able to lead Salmaron to freedom, where he collapses into the creek and has his humanity restored as the warrior hits puberty again. Nearby, another young fighter named Oghris comes across a kidnapped woman being attacked by a group of men, which seems to be the theme of the whole kingdom. Oghris is in the middle of cutting them down while some are still just trying to jump the captive, but they still manage to overwhelm him with numbers. Suddenly our hero swoops in and saves the young warrior before joining their fight with his new toy. The bandits are no match for the barbarian, and afterwards the grateful Oghris says he's on his way to a tournament at Munkar's castle. All warriors throughout the land are welcome to compete and become the next ruler of the kingdom, so our hero sees this as a good opportunity to sneak inside. Finally Salmaron catches up, as he was apparently running here the whole time, and releases the hostage to be reunited with her child. With a look of disappointment on his face that she isn't ravishable, the hero and his 2 new companions march toward Munkar's throne. When night comes they set up camp until hearing somebody sneaking up on them, so the 2 warriors split up to flank them. A cloaked figure gets the drop on Oghris, but in turn Deathstalker the same, and he demands the stranger challenge his new friend to a fair fight. Completely even in their duel, all of a sudden the cloak opens to reveal that their attacker is a woman named Kaira who wears nothing underneath. She too is on her way to compete in the tournament and joins the traveling adventurers by their campfire as she's cold for some reason. As you'd expect, in the middle of the night our hero climbs on top of Kaira, but the scene keeps cutting to Salmaron pulling faces as he watches them get busy. The next day they reach Munkar's castle, where festivities are being held in honor of the tournament, and any attractive women seem to be getting enslaved and brought to the king's court. All of the greatest warriors in the land indulge in various pleasures offered to them, while the king's harem are thrown into a mud pile and made to wrestle. Kaira's finally covered up the nips, albeit just barely, and spends the whole time with Deathstalker while Oghris forces some slave girl Anella to sit on his lap. Munkar lurks in the shadows inspecting the viable challengers before making his grand appearance, where he just sounds more bored than anything. He explains that the winner of a round robin will become ruler of his land, whether they're evil or good, then brings out his latest prize, Princess Codille. She's put on display for anyone who wants a turn with the Playboy Centerfold when an uncredited pig man takes up the offer. He just grunts and squeals until some white knight challenges him to a duel for the lady's honor, but they just bear hug each other the entire time. The rest of the room breaks out into a brawl for no reason, and Kaira's the only one trying to actually save Codille while the others are just trying to attack her. Deathstalker just sits there with no interest in the action until randomly deciding that he's going to steal Kira's thunder and releases the princess himself. Trying to carry her to his bedchambers like a true hero, the sorcerer briefly takes her back and says that she'll be delivered to the warrior later. Everybody goes back to the free-for-all, where even the girls are getting involved, though their only weapons available are pillows. The pigman defeats his challenger by beating him with somebody else's arm, and Oghris leaves with Anella, who seems to have come around. When Munkar's feeding his chest monster next, he reveals his true intentions for the tournament is to eliminate everyone in the kingdom who might be strong enough to challenge him. The sorcerer then transforms his servant Gargit into Codille and orders him to kill Deathstalker, who he sees as the biggest threat because he recognizes the sword. He sneaks into the hero's chamber where Stalker thinks that he's the real princess, and when she tries to shank him in the back, he just thinks it's foreplay. It's not until the hero is about to force himself on Gargit does he think that maybe there's something off about this woman and tells him to leave. The assassin then runs into Kaira outside, who's back to wearing no bra and trying to lend some assistance, assuming that he's the real Codille. Munkar's disguise spell suddenly wears off and the two have a brief sword fight where Gargit is penetrated after all when the warrior woman kills him. Deathstalker arrives on the scene soon after, only to find his female counterpart tragically killed by a slight cut on her side from her duel with the assassin. On the first day of the tournament, the competitors fight in a courtyard filled with cheering crowds as they slaughter each other in single combat for ultimately no reward. There's not an awful lot of blood in these fights, except for when one big guy hits a skinny dude so hard with his hammer that it turns him into a red goo. It seems like Anella's now in love with Oghris, whose first fight sees him defeat his opponent in a hard-fought duel that takes some time. The crowd then cheers his name, but afterwards the victor gets taken by Munkar's men to the dungeons while Salmaron gets run off by the guards. He slips and falls into the fountain at the center of the harem of beautiful women, and realizing the situation, he breaks the fourth wall. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Oghris is actually an agent of Munkar and brought Deathstalker to the tournament intending to claim the sword for the sorcerer. Apparently he can't be harmed with the sword in his hand, so Munkar tells Oghris to assassinate his new friend tonight before they face off in the morning. Reluctant to kill his buddy, Oghris warns Deathstalker about the sorcerer's plot and tells him to leave the tournament, but the hero refuses. He puts the sword of justice down to have a fist fight with Oghris, who even has his own chance to draw it a few times but chooses not to and fights fairly. Anella arrives only to watch her man defeated by Deathstalker, who says goodbye to the worthy fighter before breaking his neck. On the final day of the tournament is the first time we actually get to see the hero compete, when it's already down to just him and the pig face. After a sluggish fight lacking the special effects that was promised by the film's poster, Stalker drops the sword when overpowered by the pork combatant. He's almost hugged to death but manages to escape and retrieves the sword of justice before sticking it into the hog and killing the final challenger. The crowd cheers for their future king, who's welcomed into the castle to receive the reward he's been promised. He approaches the amulet to claim his prize, but Munkar transforms into Kang again and comes at the hero from behind with a giant axe. Meanwhile, the sorcerer's guards are ordered to locate Salmaron hiding with the women, but they help protect him by attacking the guards with knives. Even the princess gets in on the stabbings, and one of the ladies runs to get a warrior who I guess played dead in the tournament to kill the remaining soldiers. The sorcerer would have had better luck remaining as himself, as he's defeated instantly with his own weapon before Stalker retrieves his dropped sword of justice with the force. He retrieves the amulet and puts it on, making him doubly immortal, and lops the head off Kang, which is the second time that this guy's been killed. Going for a third, he just reattaches his head and transforms into the sorcerer before transporting himself and our hero to the deserted battleground. Munkar then creates illusions of himself that Stalker disperses immediately until halting just before he almost murders the princess. The sorcerer then burns the hero's hands with the sword of justice when Toralva shows up to remind him that they're only illusions before getting blown to hell with a fireball. Apparently that one was real, but everything else, including the giant wall of flames that Munkar conjures, is fake, and Deathstalker walks right through it. He disarms the wizard with no further resistance and then throws him to the crowd of slaves who use horses to tear him apart Genghis style. With all three objects of power in hand, Deathstalker decides that they've plagued men for too long and chooses to destroy them. And the movie ends.